Hello again. We're going to now cover a topic that is the local history of West Dedham and our economy, what people did to make a living here. First of all, Dedham itself was founded in 1636, 6 years after the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth Rock. So a very old community. We're populated because there are two big rivers on either side of us. The Charles River that goes right through here, goes through Dedham to the Charles River in Boston, and then the Neponset River, which goes right through what will eventually become where our train station is. It comes through the town of Walpole in Norwood. That allowed for a lot of people to move things in those days. Moving by river made a big, big difference. We were welcomed by Indian tribes, the Natiks, which lived up west of us, and the Nipmucks, another Indian tribe, but they all joined together and they were called the Massachusetts tribe. So there's a lot of Indians here welcoming us when we first arrived in West Dedham. One of the chiefs' name was Nahattan. We named a street after him. The river, in the Neponset River, in Norwood, the Indians used to go there because there were stones that were very thin. They could make arrows and spear points. So there's a very rich tradition. And eventually people in Dedham came over here, and we called it West Dedham, and it was called the Clapboard Tree Parish. All the people coming here came for that. Why did they come over here versus down in Dedham? Well, they were drawn here, number one, because there's a lot of names that can tell you what the history was. This street's called Mill Street. The street's called Mill Pond Street, up by near where the Sheehan School someday might be. And the reason the mills were important is it created jobs. And a mill needed a pond or a lake or a brook. You barricaded it, built a dam, and the water came over the end, and you put a water wheel in it. It made this wheel turn. When the water was going through it, that wheel turning, we had a big long tree pole into a building, and it went into that building, and it did a lot of things in that building. There'd be a big stone that would come down on top of corn or hard things like wheat and grind it and make powder that you could cook with. The second thing it did, it would take another thing that would make this arm go like this, and it would be a saw. And they would saw trees, made lumber. They made furniture from that wood. So we had a lot of carpenters here making benches and tables and other things from the wood, as well as just the big clapboards that would be put on houses with the sawmill. Also a foundry. They would take these moving things and they would pump air into a fire, get real hot, and it would burn metals. So you had iron. Horseshoes were made out of the iron. We had gates. We had fences. Later, there'll be a cemetery in Westwood with a beautiful iron fence all around it, made in West Dedham. So that created a lot of jobs on the brooks. So these brooks went down to a place called the Bubbling Brook. Someday there might be something up there like a restaurant. And the Bubbling Brook went down into Petty's Pond, which people someday are going to do ice skating, into New Pond in Norwood, eventually into the Neponset River. There's another street, Milk Street. Milk Street, if you look at in Westwood, on streets like Clapboard Tree and Gay, there's a lot of fences made out of stones. Every one of those stones was in a field one day, and the farmer had to pick those stones up, put them in a wheelbarrow or something, and carry it. So every one of those stone walls you see in Westwood was from a farmer carrying every stone there so he could plant things for his cows or to plant crops. So one street became Milk Street. We produced an awful lot of milk in Westwood, and that milk, we didn't, at first, how can we get rid of it? We can't drink it all. Big city of Boston, they wanted milk. How do we get the milk into Boston? Another group of people were called Teamsters. They had a team of 2 horses or 4 horses, and they took things into Boston that we made in West Dedham. In the wintertime, they'd go up to Buckmaster Pond, they'd saw pieces of big ice, they'd store it in barns with hay on it, and every night they would take the milk that they had gathered, put it in these Teamster wagons, put the ice on it so it wouldn't go bad, and take it into Boston. So the Teamsters took the wood into Boston, took stone into Boston. So many of the buildings in Boston were built with West Dedham wood from our trees, West Dedham stones, and milk. You as students would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, your average day, and your first job would to go out and get the eggs from the chickens, feed the horses, the goats, the pigs. And your job was to see, is there a pig missing? Is there a goat missing? Because these animals sometimes would run away. Your other job was to go find them. And we had a system in West Dedham. If you found a missing animal, you would take them to the town pound. And in 150 years from now, at the end of Route 109, today standing are these stone, 4-foot-high stone enclosure called the pound that's been there since 1700, where you would go look for lost animals. If you saw an animal wandering around, you'd take them to the pound, somebody would come pick up their animal. That was another one of your jobs. And as I said earlier, there was no school days. School was every day. So in the wintertime, your job was to heat the school, pick up wood on your way to school. So that's what it was like living here, how people made a living, how we get started. We will now take a break and do our reading exercise. Thank you.